Hello, welcome. My name's Annalee Nutter. I'm the Superintendent for Fort McMurray Public School Division. I am starting another series of Learning for Parents, which will be on our YouTube channel. Today is our first of many that will come, and I hope you will enjoy watching these short learning sessions. Today I'm going to focus on continuous improvement. Although it's not live, if you do want to have me in for a live session, you can contact your school council chair and they can make arrangements with me to come in to do that. You are welcome to send me questions after each session that I provide. Just email me. You can find my email online and I will have it at the end of the presentation as well. As I said, this is the first of many to come. I hope you enjoy it. So this is session number 1 for this school year, and I hope to be bringing forward many more. Today we're going to focus on continuous improvement in the system, followed by an update on what's new this year in the budget, and then some sharing about what advocacy has been happening in our division. So 2 documents which are required through the ministry's assurance framework are the Annual Education Results Report and the Education Plan. And these assure the public that the schools are doing what they say that they are doing. At the division level, we call this continuous improvement. It's not just these 2 documents. The plan dictates what we do. We create the plan, but all throughout the year we're touching base on the strategies that we're trying and if they're working or not working and what we can do to make changes. And then the results gives us the results of our work. This is the division AERR and the division plan. Each school also has a copy of their own school-based plans, which are on each of the school websites. So all year long, we're reflecting on the data that we have and the plan that we made. So we first receive the results, which is an example at the top of the annual education results measures. And we analyze the results with stakeholders and share it with stakeholders. And then we develop some strategies that we can use for further improvement. We tweak our education plan in whatever area is needed, and we develop our annual education results report. As I said, throughout the year, we're constantly monitoring and making sure that what we're doing is working. If it's not working, we're making those changes. If it is working, we're seeing some improvements in certain areas. We might cycle in new kids that have different issues that we can help them with, and it just keeps going over and over and around in the circle of continuous improvement. We have a data review that we do with each of the schools, so that's going to be happening shortly here. We meet with them one-on-one to talk about what their strategies are, what's working, what's not working, how can we help support you in the schools to make sure that we're seeing some of that improvement. And then it helps them also start planning for any new pieces that they may want to put in their next education plan, which is due in May. So it goes around and around in this circle of continuous improvement, looking at results, developing strategies, implementing those strategies, and then making plans again for change. That is why it's called the continuous cycle of an improvement. We do the planning and the reporting. The Alberta government helps us. They provide a guide of what they're looking for in each of those 2 documents. We share with all stakeholders when we're doing this. So it might be through your school council so that parents can be involved. It's maybe through the networks group that we have with the board. We talk to the board about it. We talk to students. We talk to staff. Everybody in the system is engaged in some way to help develop what we feel the needs are. Now, we've developed our information as a one-stop shop on our website. And so I'm just going to take you there quickly so that you can see. When you go to our website, you'll see this. It looks like a 4-leaf clover, and we like to think it's lucky, but we'll find out. Each of these leaves on this diagram has a different area of focus. So it's learn, it's plan, it's act, it's reflect. And I'm going to go into more details on each of these in future sessions. But if you wanted to go onto our website, it's on the front page and you can click and explore. So when you click on learn, you go to the right and it says learn more, and it tells you a little bit about that. And the same for plan. Each one has a different one that you can click on. So I'm going to dig deeper into that at a later date. For now, I'm just going to continue talking generally about continuous improvement. Everything that we do aligns within the system. So we ensure that we're aligning for the same outcome, which is success for our students. And then through the data analysis, we develop our priority areas in our planning. So here you can see the belief statements from the board, their vision and their mission. So everything we do aligns with that. And our priorities included. Our priorities also align with provincial priorities. And then the schools, when they're developing their plan, align with all of those priorities as well. And we do know that there's a local context at each of our schools, so that allows for them to focus on whatever it is that might be special about their school in the school year. Here, again, you can see the alignment of goals, mission statement, priorities, the domains or assurance that the government requires of us. And these are our 4 priority areas. So at the top, we have our vision, mission. Our goal is to create a community that's dedicated to educating all students for personal excellence. And then we have the 4 provincial goals that are handed to us from the government. And from those 4 different areas, we develop priorities. So we are focusing on promoting growth and success for all students, and then you can see our goals below that, and that falls into the government's category of student growth and achievement. And the same for priority 2, safe and caring environments, priority 3, effective stakeholder engagement, and priority 4, strengthening quality leading and teaching. So you can see how it all falls back into that huge vision mission that the division has and the government lays out for us through goals. This is I just want to show you a sample summary page of one school's goals on the left and then the results on the right. These are the 2 major documents that they have to provide for us, but it gives you a good overview. If you read nothing else in those documents, if you read the summary pages, it will give you some really good data and some really good ideas of what their plans are. Okay, now to go deep, I just want to show you what's here. I'm going to go deep into just one area. So I'm going to go back to that web page again and just show you just one specific area, and that'll be the first area of learn. This is constantly changing as well. So right now what we're going to see and learn is all about PLFs, why we have them, what happens during PLF, and why they're important. You can scroll down. So this just gives you an overview that we're trying to strengthen the teaching and leading in the division to build the capacity of our staff so they are better prepared to provide improvement strategies to the children that need it throughout the school year. So we have a picture of our professional learning cycle, so you know kind of what the dates are for the whole division. And then it shows you each school has their own cycle that they plan for, and you can find that on your school's webpage. It gives you some feedback that we've gotten from staff about the impact on their learning and the impact on the students for what's happening during those PLF Fridays. There's some other things you can click on to see as well, but I'm not going to click through that today. I just want to show you the wealth of information that's here. We have some feedback from teachers about what they're saying the impact of the Learning Fridays is. And then you can see year over year how the staff values the PLFs and the impact that it's having on students. So you can click through that and read as much as you want, and there's further links to click into there. And then, of course, each of those leaves, like I said, has some more extended information in it. We are adding under Learn, we're going to add all of the areas where we are engaging stakeholders. So you'll be able to see all the surveys we put out and all of the opportunities that parents have to provide input. And that's just being updated right now, so that will come in the near future. All right, so that's just a general overview of continuous improvement in the division. If you wanted to learn more about exactly what is the AERR or what is exactly the education plan, like I said, you could go to your school's webpage and they have it posted there. If you can't find it, reach out to your school principal. What I'd like to do now is just go through quickly some changes that have happened in the budget compared to last year. There is another video on our YouTube channel that you can view where I have explained the budget, but it is very complex, and so it's broken down into a number of different videos. Today, I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the changes and how our funding is calculated. So essentially, our money comes from the ministry. The Ministry of Education gives us the funds that they get from the Treasury Department. And what you see in front of you right now is what the Treasury Department has given to the Ministry of Education. And I've darkened to show you this year's envelope of money. This is in thousands of dollars. So for example, if I go to the biggest envelope, which is right here, instruction. So in order to pay for all of our teachers, the biggest part of the budget is that, and it is $6,857,244. And we'll get into the impacts of the funding model in a minute, but I just wanted to clarify this for you, that this is the current year, 23-24, and this is each pocket of money for each of the targeted areas that they have given money from the Treasury Board to the ministry. It's very complicated. Even when you go listen to my videos, you'll see diagrams and such that are very complex. And it took me a while even to figure out what was going on with the budget, where did the money come from, how did they get these formulas. So online, you can also look for this funding manual. I believe it's public, and you can see that if you just Google funding manual for 23-24 Alberta, you should be able to access that. So once they give the ministry the money, then they divide it up to the school divisions through a very complex method. They provide school divisions with a funding manual, as I've said. It's based on formulas, funding rates, criteria, and reporting requirements. So not only do we get some of this money, but we have to report back that we're spending it on what we said we would be spending it on and what they've told us to spend it on. I'm going to try and explain the best way I can without boring you. But so if you have questions, maybe a pen and paper handy might be good for you, so you can write down those questions and email me afterwards. All right, here we go. So Alberta has a funding model that consists of 15 buckets of money. Let's call them buckets of money. You can see in front of you that there are 5 major buckets, and within each of those buckets there are smaller pockets of money. There is an X through one called rural small schools, and that is because we don't get money from that bucket because we're not a rural small school. So some of those sub-grants, those little buckets in the big bucket, under base instruction, you'll see ECS, that's kindergarten and ECDP, grades 1 to 9, and high school. So that is the very basic funding that they give for every student in the school. But each of those buckets has a certain formula that they follow to calculate how much money they're going to give each of those different grade levels. The only thing that I want to point out here is that private schools get $344 million, which is up 9% overall from last year. So that money is not available to us. That is just for private schools. And then you can see the other buckets there. We're going to go into some detail in some of them. This year, the base instruction amount increased by 6%. That's great. We also had an increase in enrollment this year of 7.8% for ECS and grade 1 to 12. So overall, our enrollment has increased. The base instruction amount has increased by 6%. Now, here we go with the funky formulas and stuff and the different base amounts. In ECS and grade 1 to 9, you can see in the little bubble there, the dollar amount that is used to calculate the overall funding amount. Now, that is not per student. We're going to talk about that in a minute. That is just the base instruction amount. All right, and the same for grade 1s to 9 and grade 10 to 12. They each have a special formula that is used to calculate what that amount is going to look like. And this funding model that is used is called the weighted moving average. You don't have to worry about all that fine print there. What I need you to focus on is the white chart in front of you. The weighted moving average doesn't give you It doesn't say, hey, you have 7,000 students this year, so we're going to give you this much money. It actually looks at past enrollment in the last 2 years and your projection for the current school year. So it's based on projections and estimates. The only actual funding amount that we know for certain is the one that happened in 21-22. And then it takes each of those years, and you can see the weighted factor. It multiplies 21-22 by 20% of the actual number of students you had. The second factor is it looks at the school year for 22-23, and it multiplies your estimated student enrollment by 30%. And then finally, for the 23-24 school year, it looks at your enrollment projection and multiplies that by 50. Now, it's a projection because we're guessing how many students we might get, because the funding comes before the end of the school year and before the 23-24 school year actually starts. So this is not the per student funding that we used to get. They use this weighted average to figure out how much of a lump sum we're going to get for each of those groups of students. They're averaging it over 3 years, and it's not difficult to understand that if you're a growing school division and you're basing it on past years, every year you're going to have students that aren't funded because you didn't predict such growth and you got growth. And now all of those growth projections are not going to get you the funding that you need. So let me do a little example with you. Here are some numbers for you. We have the same chart there. You can see the 20%, 30%, and the 50%. If we look at the table below it, in 21-22, we had 6,420 actual students. So we take that number and we multiply it by 20%, and that gives us 1,284 students. That's how we get that first line. The next line is the students from 22-23, which were estimated and multiplied at 30%. So 6,982 students by 30% gives us a total of 2,094 students. And then finally, we look at the projections for 23-24, which we said would be 7,514 students. And we multiply that by a 50% factor to get 3,757 students. So now we have the numbers in total add together, and they give you that number in the green box, 7,135 students. So if our actual enrollment is 7,514, but we're only funded for 7,135 based on their formula, then that means that 378 of our students are unfunded, which actually is the same amount as one of our schools less 2 students. So if you think of it visually, a whole school in our division is not being funded. Now, here's where it gets really complicated. So you remember that amount we took from the beginning? This is for ECS to grade 9 base instruction. So let's take, for example, ECS. They're going to go back to this dollar amount in the green bubble, 3,246 for ECS. And they're going to multiply it by the weighted moving average, which is 7,135. to get the amount of money that they're going to give for all of the students in our system that are in ECS. And they're going to do this, and they're going to do the same thing for grades 1 to 9, and they're going to do the same thing for the students in high school. The students in high school have a little bit of a different funding formula. It's a little bit more complex because sometimes they spend an extra year or two to complete their studies. But you get the idea of what the formula looks like, how they're calculating it. It's not per student, it's a lump sum that we get, and then we have to work that into each of our schools. Now, some of you are saying, oh, but I heard in the news that you received a supplemental enrollment grant. We did. But again, I'd like to demonstrate that it was just a flat rate depending on how much enrollment growth you had. So we were at 7.8% growth. So way down at the bottom, it says growth above 5%. That would be us. So it said we would get $3,000 per student on growth that was over 5%. So in the box on the right, you can see we received an extra $1 million of funding for the growth in enrollment of the 532 students, because they look at the head count, not just the funded. And had we been fully funded in the first place, we would have received $2,720,000 per student. So the gap is still $1.673 million. That's the gap. That's the money we're not seeing. And you can imagine how that might impact us in the schools. There are other grants to get too. So you might have heard announcements about these, or you might know about these. So we have that gap already in the base funding. And now they give us special grants in a number of different buckets. This bucket is the supports and services bucket. It's one of the 5 that we saw at the beginning. And within this bucket, there are 5 different grants. One for specialized learning support, which is the kindergarten PUF. One for ESL and francization. ESL is actually English language learners, and francization would be the students that are learning French. We get a grant for refugee students, and we get a grant for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students. And these are all meant to support the students in some way at the school level. Not every school gets the same amount, because this is based on numbers. How many PUF students do you have? Okay, here's the formula for PUF. How many French students do you have? Okay, here's the formula for French. Okay, so it's all, that's where they're looking at independent numbers. If students enroll after September 30th, and they fall into any of these categories, we don't necessarily get funding for them, because there is a deadline for funding, which is September 30th, which is why it's very important for students to be in their seats in the school in the month of September. Because if they don't come until after September, we don't get funded for them. There's also monies for the student wellness programs. And all of these are through our inclusive learning department and or within the school. They are targeted, which means we have to spend the money on that. Okay, ESL dollars, it's $13.20 per ESL student. This helps to pay for supports for those English language learners, as does the refugee grant monies that come in. And the same for FNMI, $13.20 per student. That's identified. Without that, we wouldn't be able to do the support in reading and numeracy that these students require, or even to have some of the activities that we have when it comes to First Nations, Métis, Inuit. So there is some funding that's given to us as well for reconciliation activities. Then we have another bucket for school, and that is for the operations and maintenance of the school and for transportation. And we were so happy to hear that transportation grants were increased by 32% this year. The fees for parents went down slightly or were maintained, but the funding was increased. And that is great, because we were always underfunded and in a deficit when it came to transportation. So this year they enhanced access to transportation. They wanted us to address ride times, make sure everything was cool there. The increased costs for driver training, insurance, and fuel was included in this transportation budget. For the 23-24 fiscal year, they increased enough that we will probably be able to break even this year. So that is excellent news. We've been talking about this. The board's been advocating for this for a number of years. So that was good news on that front. The community bucket holds the socioeconomic status, geographic, and nutrition grants. And so the grant money was given in a lump sum to the division, and that was $199,000. And that provides the breakfast program services that are at each of the schools. It's great to have parents volunteering. We truly appreciate the work that you do there. And they give us money specifically to be spent on food. And so we are managing that quite well. We do get Breakfast Club grants as well as local companies donating. So every little bit helps. And we need to make sure those students are fed and their brains aren't hungry, because if their stomachs are hungry, their brains are hungry, they're not going to learn. Another bucket was the jurisdiction bucket, and that has to do with how we pay for the people who work in human resources, the people who work in finance, the people who work in my office, and the board of trustees and the work that they do. And that did not increase, and it hasn't increased for a number of years. That remains the same. We can't take money from any other bucket and put it in this bucket. There are some extra grants. We have a federal French grant that we get. We have an outreach program grant that we get for our outreach school at Frank Spraggins, and a home ed grant, which is sometimes a shared grant with parents if they're homeschooling. And then this year, like I already mentioned, the fuel price contingency funding that we're getting, and we get money for extra curriculum resources because we know we have a new curriculum that's being implemented, as well as professional learning funding for the teachers for that. We have the learning disruption grant for, the students that are in grades 1, 2, 3 who have issues in the areas of numeracy and literacy, which we're able to have some additional hires this year to support that. And then the classroom complexity grant allowed us to hire an additional 8.5 EAs. It was actually about $387,000 that we got. So that covered about 8.5 EAs in the classrooms. So much of this is targeted spending. We have to spend it on what they tell us to spend it on. Some of that targeted funding provided us the division supports in literacy and numeracy that we have. So we have a couple of division staff that go and work in the schools directly with students in literacy and numeracy to support improvement for them. We also have a capacity building staff member who is working with educational assistants. We have onboarded a number of new EAs this year, and moving forward, we want to support them to be able to do their job better and support students. So that is that person's job. We have, through grant funding, secured an executive functioning staff member for 2 years. This is not in every school division. However, this executive functioning staff member is shared with, we got a grant with the Catholic School Division, and so we each got money to hire a staff member to focus on these areas, the neurodivergent and neurotypical students, and then differentiation are the big goals, as well as IPP goal development. So this will be a big help to our teachers in the schools. We also have a behavior support person that was hired through a grant that we got. That grant is, I'm just trying to remember who that grant was through. I believe that was through Suncor, but don't quote me on that. Again, that's not money from the government, and they are working on tiers of intervention and functional behavior assessments in schools, and is being overseen. All of these are being overseen by the Inclusive Learning Department. And finally, we have something for student and staff wellness. We have a new DEI coordinator who is going and responsible for working with all of the schools on restorative practice, anti-racism, and diversity and inclusion. And then we have some work in regulation and co-regulation that we're doing, and then just overall wellness. So these are extra supports that we're very thankful that we have. They're still not enough, I might add. There has been an increase in violence, aggression, behaviors, complexities. And so this is fantastic for us to be able to have this. The board has also been doing their part to advocate, because we know that within the system there are some deficiencies in funding. And the funding model in particular is the biggest one that they've been really, focusing on. They have met with the minister in November. We went to the Ledge and met with him, talking to local MLA, Tani Yao. They participate regularly in the Alberta School Board discussions, and they have provided feedback on the budget that went out, and I hope everybody here has done that as well. And they're working their way through other provincial organizations that trustees are able to access. So I feel like the school board is doing a lot when it comes to advocating in the way that they can, in the role that they have. The impact of this funding framework, as you can see from the poster in front of you, is that it's not working for us because our system is continually growing in enrollment, and so we're always behind on the number of students that we're getting money for. As I mentioned, 384 of our students are not fully funded. And so that means we have to increase our class sizes. We have an increase in complex needs that are not being met. We have a budget deficit that remains in place because we can't ever catch up. We need the money for other things. And we are having difficulties filling positions and maintaining staff because of all of these impacts that I just mentioned. So if you want to learn more, as I mentioned, you can go to the website and see more about our continuous improvement model that we have in place. You can go to your school website and learn about the plans that they have and the strategies they're using. You can attend your school council meetings and have your voice heard there and help them to do their work. You can bring your concerns to the school council, and the school principal is there. You can ask them to do different presentations on your behalf that you'd like to see happen. You can contact your MLA if you want with your concerns. We value your voice, and we hope that in the coming days, when you get if you get a code in the mail from Alberta Education for their annual survey, that you will go ahead and go online and take that survey. That gives you a voice to the government directly on the work that's happening in the schools. In addition, you will have gotten a survey on diversity, equity, inclusion that we have put out to all of the parents, students, and staff. This is not about teaching ideologies in the school. What it is about is we're trying to find out where there's gaps. Are there students who don't feel safe and cared for at school, who don't feel welcomed? We want to address those gaps. So that is what that survey is about. And I'm shortly going to be sending you another survey. January 25th, I'll be sending you a survey about the budget, which is your opportunity to provide your voice to the current board about the budget. And if they were to get additional money for next year's school budget, where would you like to see it spent? So a number of avenues for you. I look forward to hearing from you. If you do have some questions for me, please feel free to reach out. My number's on the website. My phone number you can get easily from the principal at your school. You can call the division office. Any questions, I would love to hear. And what I would like to do is maybe attach a frequently asked questions page to the end of this presentation so you can see what other people are asking about. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening today. I appreciate it. And if you have topics that you want to hear about, send those my way as well. I look forward to putting out my next presentation to you. Have a great day. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you were able to take some points away that were of interest to you and help to understand better what it is we're doing in the system. If you have questions, please contact me at annalee.nutter@fmpsd.ab.ca. Thank you.